What's going on, guys? It's your old pal CHH here today. I was going through my Blu-ray shelf earlier and I was just looking at the collection. I have all my Scream Factory movies at the top couple rows. And it got me thinking, I can't believe it's already been over 10 years since Scream Factory's been a thing. So it had me wanting to do a video. Why not do a video about Scream Factory's best Blu-ray releases? This is somewhat of a nostalgic video, and it's also very personal because I'm going to be showing you releases that meant a lot to me. Maybe they were films that I blind bought or made me really reappreciate a film or rediscover it in a sense. So it's somewhat of a personal list, but it's a nice stack of Blu-rays. And again, maybe this could work as some sort of recommendation video for some of you guys that aren't 4K and still want to get some of these movies. Very end, I've got 2 vintage Scream Factory box sets as a bonus. And no, it's not the Halloween 15 disc set that everybody knows about. Let's start things off with a bang. How about the Blu-ray release of Psycho 3 from Scream Factory? Now, yes, I know, the 4K set is coming from Arrow, and a lot of people, including myself, is going to get that. But this was super important to me at the time. I had just seen Psycho 3 on DVD maybe, half a year before this came out, and I fell in love with it, and I really wanted to see it in HD, and this was like this kept me up all night. When I heard that Psycho 3, not 2, but 3 was coming out on Blu-ray, I was over the moon. I always tell people, if you're a big 80s slasher fan, odds are you'll really, really like Psycho 3 as much as Psycho 2, because Psycho 3 really leverages hard into that subgenre of the sleazy slasher, and I know it has a big fan base because of that, but yes, Psycho 3 is extremely fun, and this Blu-ray release will always mean the world to me. But just seeing this movie in HD for the first time back then was insane. And I'll always cherish this Blu-ray release. I got it right when it came out. Guys, so here's a recent one. This is Alone in the Dark. Now, Alone in the Dark is extremely important to me because I had wanted to see this movie for so long. It was hard to come by. You had to basically bootleg it. It was lost in physical media limbo for so long. And when Scream Factory finally announced it, now this was just maybe 2 years ago at most, this is one of those lost movies that people have seen, that loved, knew about, and what made this release so great was not only the good picture quality, because they used an interpositive, they got a 2K scan from that. It's got Donald Pleasance in it, but also the special features were great with Jack Shoulder, the director from Nightmare on Elm Street 2, who directed this, gave an really great in-depth interview about this movie, and this was a really special release, so I really, really love the Alone in the Dark Blu-ray release from Scream Factory. I really doubt this will ever get a bigger upgrade, considering they couldn't use the negative to restore this. They used an interpositive, but it looked great, and this is a hell of a fun little slasher film. Definitely check it out. One that I'm sure will probably get a 4K upgrade sooner rather than later, but hell, this movie is incredible, and this Blu-ray release was insane when it was announced. Night of the Creeps, the Tom Atkins action horror film. So funny, and when this came out, it was a big deal. The picture quality on this one was really good. Special features were incredible in this because this was Tom Atkins' involvement, so you know he was going to be a part of it. This is a Fred Decker film. This is a classic, and it's a film, even though there was a Blu-ray for it already, the audience and the Scream Factory fans went ballistic when we got the announcement of Night of the Creeps. They did figures, they did posters, which I got all of it, because who doesn't want a Tom Atkins figure? But this was such an important piece of Scream Factory history, the fans went over the moon when they announced A Night of the Creeps. And it's one of my favorite Blu-ray releases still that they ever did. And I love the artwork for that. Incredible. Taking it back old school, guys, this was one of the very first Scream Factory releases I got, probably within the first 10. And we did the whole kit and caboodle. We got the poster and everything. And watching this movie, so I streamed this movie on Netflix back in the day. And then literally when Scream Factory announced this, I was super excited to see it. But I was floored at how good The Fog looked on Blu-ray for the first time. Thinking back to watching this on Blu-ray for the first time, I thought like, oh my God, this isn't the movie I just watched before. Because this is when Netflix was using crappy VHS rips of these movies at the time. This was years ago, guys. This was a different era. But seeing this in 1080p for the first time was incredible. And this Fog Blu-ray release is great. What I love about it is, not that the colors are so much muted, but they're just like zombie-like. It's like an ugly color for this, but it works so well. And this is one of those releases that made it really important that Adrienne Barbeau was the star of the film and not Jamie Lee Curtis, because all the promotional stuff back in the day put Jamie in the forefront because that's what they thought was the right thing to do, and not make Adrienne the star and put her on the cover. So it was important for the people that made, that released this, the Scream Factory people that released this, they made Adrienne, the biggest person on the artwork, and this was a legendary release. I love my Blu-ray release of The Fog. It's still very special to me. Next up, guys, this movie has gotten 4K releases already, but when I look back to when Scream Factory released Candyman on Blu-ray, this was out of this world. People were freaking out. I mean, it was very, very, very... It was a very much a big deal, and people were so excited to get this movie on Blu-ray because it had been on DVD for so long. And then, of course, when this Blu-ray comes out, this Blu-ray lasts for a couple of years, and then the 4Ks get announced and everything, and that's cool. But I love this Blu-ray. I went all out at the time. This is like the 2 slipcover version, and here's the alternate artwork, and I really liked it. So, yeah, Candyman's Blu-ray release was super important, and for a lot of people, the picture quality on this is completely fine. Next up, guys, this was later in the Scream Factory Blu-ray Collector Series run, really the latter part before, this was the heartbeat before everything started getting 4Ks, really. And what movie is that? I loved it because it made me watch this movie really for the first time ever. I didn't give it a chance the first time I watched it, and I fell in love with it. That was the Blu-ray release for John Carpenter's Vampires. This movie is freaking awesome, and I still beg people to check it out. I know it's late 90s John, but this is James Woods, John Carpenter, Western vampire magic. This movie is so freaking awesome. I love it, and this Blu-ray looks great. If they did a 4K, would I upgrade? Probably, because I love this movie so much. I watch it at least once a year. It's so good. So this release was important to me because it made me rediscover this film and give it that real, genuine, extra shot. Because I had the DVD I got from like a Goodwill, and I started watching it, and I just was not in the right frame of mind. I wasn't really wanting to watch it, but I put it on because I bought it. I was like, oh, I may as well just put it on. Watching this release made me fall in love with this movie. This is a great movie, and I still think a great Blu-ray to get. The Vampires release from Scream Factory is freaking awesome. I'll do these next ones together. I'm talking about Return of the Living Dead 1 and 2. Now, here's the interesting thing, people. I think a lot of you would agree when it comes to Scream Factory's releases, the Blu-ray release for Return of the Living Dead, when this came out in 2015 or 16, at the time, people were saying this is the best release Scream Factory's ever done. They got a 2K scan of the inner positive, which was above standard at the time. That was like above standard to do stuff like that. But not only that, they put every bit of documentary footage you could possibly get on here. They outsourced. They got the More Brains documentary. This release is like, if you own this, you've got it all. And then to top it all off, when Scream Factory released Return of the Living Dead Part 2, I loved this movie, so I was super excited, and they did such justice to it. They gave it a release, and they really look like a partner. They go together. The artwork style is similar, and I love it. I could never get rid of either of these, especially 2, because this hasn't gotten a 4K. I hope it does, but the fact that this Blu-ray release is one of the best Scream Factory ever did, and the artwork is probably some of the best artwork ever done, I could never, ever get rid of this. This is a release, and this is a great release too. It's not an A++ because this is, I think, the best horror film ever made. I love Return of the Living Dead. It's my favorite. But this release is stacked with so many great special features. It's awesome. So if you don't own these guys, go out of your way to try to get these, especially Part 2. I think this is still in print. This is tough, but if you can get it for a good price, the Blu-ray release is still incredible. I love it. Another release that was incredible was the Frank Langella Dracula Blu-ray release from 1979. This gave us both versions of the film. You got the 1991 director-preferred desaturated color timing along with the regular theatrical color timing. I watched this movie for the first time when this Blu-ray came out. It was a stacked Blu-ray. They did incredible stuff on it. And this movie kicked my ass so much that it's become my all-time favorite Dracula film. And this release kind of slipped by me, but I think I got it right at the tail end of the 3-month slipcover guarantee. So I lucked out. And I'm so glad that I got it because this is the, 80s horror fan vampire film. It's so good. Donald Pleasance is in it, and Frank Langella is like the perfect mix of smooth, suave, but scary kind of a Dracula. This is 1979, so it's right around that alley of those years a lot of us horror fans love. If you haven't seen this movie, go get this release now. This movie is effing incredible. Another one, guys, that I wanted to bring up was Prison. Now, Prison is one that came out at the earliest of the Scream Factory lifespan. And this movie definitely got a new audience at the time because Scream Factory built up that trust with people by this point. They had released Halloweens 2 and 3 at the time, and people were over the moon. They saw the quality, they saw the effort that went into the releases, and they did a collector's version for this movie at the time. Now, if this movie was stuck in limbo and got released today, they would just do a regular version of this. This is collector's edition, as you could see. At the time, they treated 80s little one-off movies like Prison, they gave them the respect the way Vinegar Syndrome does for films like this now. At the time, though, Scream Factory was rolling out the red carpet. Now, I got this release later in the lifespan, right before it went out of print, so there is no slipcover for it, but this is, in fact, a collector's edition, and it was a great release. This is such a great film directed by Rennie Harlan, and a gem in the Scream Factory library. And I wouldn't be surprised if Vinegar Syndrome probably ends up doing a 4K of this movie, to be honest with you. Got to do these together, guys. The Halloween 2 and 3. Now, I have Halloween 2 with the slipcover for DVD, because at the time, I was still kind of getting DVDs. So I was like, I'll do Halloween 3 release on Blu-ray, and I'll do Halloween 2 on the DVD release, which it's on the shelf. I just didn't grab it. I subsequently ended up getting the Blu-ray version of this movie just to have it for the collection. But if you're a fan of these releases, you go way back to the start of Scream Factory, and you know how important these releases were. People were over the moon excited about these, and this is a testament to how good Scream Factory was in the beginning. They never spared a penny. They put every dime into production. They got great special features. They got the best making-ofs at the time. They're doing these incredible making-ofs for these movies, and it's something I so wish that they would do now. Now they like to make the back of the releases look full of special features, where back then they would actually compile and put stuff together to tell a story. Standalone, the making of Halloween 3 on here is something that I revisit constantly because it's so good, and they did the same thing on Halloween 2. They made a documentary for this. These were amazing releases and will always be legendary physical media releases. Next up, guys, is another double pack release, the Bordello Blood and Demon Night. Now, the reason I think these are two of Scream Factory's best Blu-ray releases, because I really think that these releases push the films to an audience to where a lot of people, including like me, they watched some Tales from the Crypt growing up and stuff like that, but they never got into the movies, because these, I think, happened at the end of the show's life. Now, I love both of these. These are great releases. I actually like Bordello Blood a little bit more than Demon Night, but I'm definitely in the minority. People love Demon Night. But this is right at the heartbeat of the height of Scream Factory at the time, guys. You have to understand, during this time, they were going all out. They were getting great special features. They were making, like I said, Tainted Blood, the making of Bordello Blood. They made a documentary about this. And they were doing all kinds of great stuff. The making of Demon Night. So they were going out of their way. This is primetime Scream Factory, where they put every drop of energy into their releases. And these two Tales from the Crypt movies got that treatment, and they did a great job. So these are awesome releases. Staying in that Tales category, when they released Tales from the Hood, the Blu-ray, again, this is right at the height of the release of Scream Factory Blu-rays, and the Tales from the Hood Blu-ray was spared no expense yet again. They had great special features for this. The movie looked great, and they did incredible artwork for this, which I thought was some of the better artwork Scream Factory ever had. As a kid, I would go throughout the shelf on Blockbuster and sing, and then finally I would be able to get the chance to, you'd be like, okay, I remember that, and now I'm going to get this release. And they were really bringing people like me to memories that I had as a kid, and maybe saw but had very little recognition of or remembrance of, but bringing my childhood back to me in a sense, because I used to see Tales from the Hood on the shelf at Blockbuster all the frickin' time. So when this release came out, it was incredible, and this movie has as diehard of a fan base as both Tales from the Crypt movies, and some even say that this is better than the Tales from the Crypt movies. And it's a hard thing to argue, because this is such a great movie. If you've never seen Tales from the Hood, get it yesterday. This is a great Scream Factory release. Guys, another one I want to bring up is the Silent Hill Collector's Edition release. This release was great because they added new features, new interviews. The Blu-ray actually looked really good, because I was so nervous to watch this in HD, because this is a very digital CGI type movie, but it looked incredible, quite frankly, and it really rebirthed my die-hard love for this film when this release was announced and came out. This again was at the pretty heights of the Scream Factory's, releasing for Blu-rays. I think this was the latest 2010s, maybe 2017 or 18, but they did such a good job on this release. I want people to see and own and love this movie the way I do, because I can't be the only one that thinks this is a 2000 CGI horror masterpiece, which I know is one of the most strangest things to say, but if you're going to do a CGI horror movie, this is probably one of the best examples ever. It creates this world that is unlike anything you'll ever see. This movie is so good. Get it yesterday. This is one of my favorite Scream Factory Blu-ray releases of all time, Silent Hill. We've got to talk about, even though there's the 4K out, I still tell people, hold on to your Blu-ray release of Creepshow. This is a 10 out of 10 home run release with the hard shell box. You've got the booklet. As a matter of fact, guys, you may still be able to get this readily on Amazon if you want it, and I still don't blame people if they'd rather get this than upgrade to the 4K because of the premiere packaging on this. It's so nice. It's a hard shell box. They did great artwork. I like the artwork for this. And it's a good-looking Blu-ray. Now, the 4K looks incredible, don't get me wrong, and I love the 4K, but this is a legendary Scream Factory release. When this came out, people were so happy. At this point, I'd gotten a little bit cynical to where I saw people that typically just hated they had problems with every Scream Factory release that was coming out. They were upset about this, that, or whatever. But this was a release that it seemed like at the time I would go out and I would watch a ton of videos, and most people would be like, okay, Scream Factory, you outdid yourself. This is competing with the likes of Arrow Video with their kind of collector's releases. Great job, and I agree, this is a sensational release. Another one of my favorite Blu-ray releases from Scream Factory is definitely Class of 1984. They did a great job in the restoration of this one. It's a new high-definition transfer that they did. There's great interviews, but really why I want to say this is one of their best Blu-ray releases because I feel like this is a title that was really brought to the forefront and got that new core audience, myself included. I had never seen Class of 1984 before getting this Blu-ray, and I'll never forget when I got it, I was like, I hope the movie is as good as this artwork on the front because something about that artwork just really draws me in. And not only was it as good, the movie was better than I even thought. And now that I'm more familiar with Mark L. Lester, it's just like, of course, I should have seen this movie a long time ago. But yes, this is such a great release from Scream Factory. Don't know that they're ever going to upgrade this to 4K. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But this Blu-ray release is legendary. I mean, when this came out, people were super excited about it. I remember that, and I passed on it because I never heard of it, and I was like, I don't need to get that. Looking back, I robbed myself of enjoying this film for a number of years that I could have. And to this day, I still consider this one of Scream Factory's best Blu-ray releases. Now, this film has gotten multiple releases since the one I'm about to show. It's gotten 4Ks, it's gotten Steelbooks, it's gotten 4K Blu-ray releases. But at the time, guys, when Scream Factory announced their Blu-ray version of The Thing, it was the breaking news of the day. I mean, it was crazy. It was pandemonium on all, Facebook, and I don't even know if I was on Twitter at the time. But when this release was announced and came out, people were so happy. And this was a 2K scan of the inner positive, and it was actually supervised by Dean Cundy. It was weird. I don't know. Maybe it was easier and cheaper to get to the inner positives at the time, or it just cost money to really restore stuff on 4K, and it really wasn't a thing yet for every kind of movie to be going that route. Regardless, I just remember at the time watching these releases, a lot of us were all saying, like, these movies look incredible. This is so great. This is good enough. It's crazy now. Looking back, when you get 4K and stuff like that, it's just almost just like, oh, I almost wish they would have stopped and we could have stayed off right here. Because this is truly beyond good enough for the average person. But this release is legendary. I remember when this got announced from Scream Factory, it was like, oh my God, yes, The Thing needs that premiere release. Because it had a bare bones, it had just a standard little universal Blu-ray release, but this release was groundbreaking at the time, and I actually really still love that slip art that they did for The Thing. It's great. This one was kind of lost in limbo for a little while. This is Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. I still tell people to get this all the time. It's still somewhat of a hidden gem. It's not as revered as the Tales from the Crypt or Tales of the Hood movie. I think Tales from the Dark Side is every bit as good as all those movies, if not a little bit better. I love Tales from the Dark Side. It's my favorite horror anthology, I think. I come close to changing my mind every now and again. But this movie is so good, and they got the rights of this to be released, I think, from Paramount. Yeah, Paramount's on the back of this. It was just on DVD, and then it kind of just disappeared, and a lot of people would say, where is Tales from the Dark Side's Blu-ray? And finally, this got released right around 2019-ish, maybe 2020, I can't remember. It's been some time, but yeah, this is a great Blu-ray release. I don't foresee them upgrading this anytime soon, so I really think you're safe to get this. If you've never heard of it, but you've heard of the show, expect quality. I promise you, this was like the send-off for the show, I think. They were just like, we're going to end things off with a bang. This was supposed to kind of be a Creepshow 3 situation, which didn't happen for years later. And so they used some of the stories that were going to be used for Creepshow 3 and put it in Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. And this has Stephen King and George Romero written all over it. You'll love it. I promise. It's awesome. Get it. This was such a sensational release. I didn't know that I was going to be as excited about this till I brought it home. This was the Trick or Treat Scream Factory release. Now, I love this so much. This release is all that and a bag of chips because the back has some great new interviews with Michael Dougherty, and I was so excited because I'd seen him talk about the film in brief on YouTube before, but I was so excited at the chance to sit down and watch something with him, really break this movie down. And let's just kind of be vain for a second. That artwork is some of the best artwork they've ever done for Scream Factory. It's crazy how much effort was going into these Blu-ray releases, and it's, you know, you look now with a lot of the 4K stuff, they've come out so recently, they don't even probably feel the need to try to redo anything, just port some of it over. This is when they were at the heights. This was the tail end of the golden era, and this release is a golden example of that. I mean, just, this release is incredible. Next up, we got to talk about this. Again, the latter part of Scream Factory's Blu-ray runs, but when they did House of Wax, I actually thought they did a damn good job on this release. There were some great interviews. They even got some interviews with Paris Hilton. I think this release brought a new audience to it, which was super important because House of Wax is a great 2000s, not take itself so seriously slasher film that's just super entertaining with a great cast, and I think it goes up there in the Hall of Fame for Scream Factory Blu-ray releases. So the last Blu-ray release, and then I'll do my 2 bonus box sets, is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Next Generation Blu-ray. This was incredible because they gave us what we wanted, and by we, I mean the weirdos that loved this movie. Yes, we got the Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre cut of the film. We got the theatrical, regular release, if you will. Texas Chainsaw Massacre Next Generation, but they had some great special features on here with the effects creators and things like that. They put the behind the scenes stuff on here. I love this movie, and I do think it brought an audience to it that it deserves because Next Generation is nothing to the quality of the first 2, but damn it, it is a buck wild crazy movie, and I still think it's going to get a bigger audience in due time, mark my words. This is a Hall of Fame Blu-ray release from Scream Factory. So my 2 bonus box sets, I just wanted to bring this up because at the time, this was selling out like crazy, and it made a lot of people happy. The 10-disc Halloween set that Scream Factory put out, it kind of cut the fat on some of the special features, but for a lot of people that missed out on the 15-disc set, it was good enough that made them happy, because I remember people were like, you know what, I do like the 15-disc set a lot, but I'm super happy with my 10-disc set, and it still gets the job done, and I can binge all my movies on Blu-ray, and I have them together. I don't have to go digging around to find this or that. And I just kind of wish that they would have done like the same thing for the Friday the 13th films. They never did. Paramount basically did, with the exception of the New Line stuff, obviously. It would have been nice if Scream Factory could have got the license to do a budget version of the Friday the 13th box set that I could have, bought as well, because I'm crazy and I buy every Friday the 13th release. But at the time, this Halloween release was great, and it made a lot of people happy, and it was helpful for the people that couldn't afford or get that set at the time. So this actually worked as a good buffer for people and some sort of a scapegoat. And I wish that they could kind of do this sort of thing with their big box sets today. But the 10-disc set is classic, and it's a Hall of Fame release, in my opinion. And another classic box set I wanted to bring up, and one of the reasons I just can't bring myself to upgrade this to 4K, I have an Arrow version that has the cut I want, and then my buddy I ended up getting me this after the fact. Kyle, shout out. The Nightbreed limited edition box set was incredible. It's got both cuts in the movie. The Blu-rays look great, and I'm not saying the 4K wouldn't be a big improvement, although I have it on some authority that it was less than thrilling compared to some of the other 4K releases. Would you want to upgrade after a set like this? This is incredible, this box set. And there was a huge story about Scream Factory actually sending this box set to the people that bought the regular version, and the people that bought this got the regular version instead. It was a huge fiasco, so who ended up with this was a big mystery back in the day when it was announced, but this is a classic box set and a Hall of Fame release if I've ever seen one. Guys, that is what I think are some of the best Scream Factory Blu-ray releases. It's very personal, but also there's some logistic stuff that I brought up as well. They're a great company despite the fact that they're in some sort of a lull to some people. I also understand the argument that people are like, this is the golden era. Some of our favorite horror movies are getting 4Ks, and I'm with you as well. I get that. I ping pong back and forth. And I'm trying to not ping pong anymore, but what can I say? But that is some of Scream Factory's best Blu-ray releases over the years, in my opinion, guys. Tell me what some of your favorites are. Tell me which Scream Factory releases made you a big fan of a movie for the first time, because that is one of the biggest important things. It's a very subjective thing, but I think it's an important thing. Hopefully this video doesn't make some of you guys spend too much money. I love you. Take care. Huge giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind the scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.